Welcome to Rauta, welcome to Beyond the Gates. It's Bergen and Grieg, Holland. Probably the most iconic place when it comes to any kind of music and sound and all that stuff. And we're here for a good reason. First of all, we have Aeternus here, and they recorded some material here, and also they are playing a gig here, anniversary gig. Sir, now that we've done the official introduction, why don't you let the audience know who the hell are you and why on earth are you here with me?
Oh, why? I am Horace, the founder and singer and guitarist and composer in Aeternus, and we are here to play. And we're opening tonight, this afternoon actually, and we're gonna make some noise for everybody.
Yes. Now, 30 years is a hell of a lot of time.
It's a lot of
it's more than half of our lifetime, and you've been doing music, you've been playing lots of concerts and lots of albums, and more importantly, I don't know if it's more important, but maybe worth mentioning at least, that you've changed the style over the years, slowly maybe, but nonetheless, and you were the only original member in the band, if I'm not mistaken. This is a vast topic, so let's go piece by piece. How does it feel to be here 30 years later?
It feels good. I always just kind of basically wanted to make music, and I understand that I've been doing it for a long time, of course, and I'm just really glad that I still have guys that want to do this with me. And I have people that believe in what I'm doing and what I want to do, and they want to be a part of it. So I'm just really happy, For me, it was always just kind of like a lifestyle to just make music, play guitar, release it, and share it with others. And we always managed to do that. 30 years, like everybody says, who would have known? But it's I think it's great, and I will definitely continue just going on for as many years as I can. The fingers still work, the joint still works, so and the brain still works. So I'm just happy that I'm still around.
All right,
or that we are still around.
Yeah. So there is with music that has been kind of ever-flowing and changing and all that stuff. You started more or less as one of the Bergen black metal bands, if I'm not totally mistaken, but it somehow changed or evolved more into the territory of death metal, if we can call it that. How do you feel in hindsight, this kind of a transition or evolution?
Well, already back in '95, a few weeks ago, we had our own kind of like category or classification of our music, which was dark metal. And on the first two albums, we were categorized very quickly as black metal, and so that's why we took the makeup off on the third album. And but we had also we always tuned down the guitars. We tried to have like a very kind of dark music and going on. And I think over time, even though of course a lot of people don't agree with it, me or us, that we have kept it always kind of like dark, but sometimes with a lot of death metal elements. But I think, of course, through time, there's been a lot of changes in the music and how we define dark metal. But also, if you ask me, there's always been a little thread through the whole thing, like all the time. Now in the past two albums, we're trying to go back a little bit as much as we can because it became too much death metal elements, at the points, and we think that we are successful in that. So,
yeah, I remember already back in the '90s that you were like a little bit off, and the dark metal was very describing well what you guys had doing, because you were like a little bit different, which also gave you the stamp of originality. It works good, especially if you're like, hey, we're into that kind of stuff. But I guess it really stole a little bit of that wind when people were like focusing on oh my goodness, it's the Norwegian black metal, people are dying and churches are burned, and these guys dark metal? Like, what were I supposed to think about that? But you're helping to define the whole subgenre of sorts.
Yeah, there are other bands I know that call themselves dark metal as well, but when I listen to them, I don't hear the same. What can I say? They have a different approach, but that's fine because it's just a word, dark metal. What is that? I mean, music is all about emotions, and it's hard to put a word on it.
Yeah.
But I knew I didn't want to portray myself and my band ever as black metal, because that is more the ideology of blah 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 blah. And death metal was something I tried to steer away from. But as a death metal fan, it's hard. You listen to Deicide and Morbid Angel all the time, so there's an influence going on. But yeah, our definition of dark metal, I think, has been pretty. What can you say? It's we own it to ourselves, and we feel that we're always have had something on our own, to call it ours, which I think is what we will continue to do.
Yeah, at least you have really carved your own path, and nobody else can say they are one of those guys who are just like a copy or imitation of something else. Aeternus is one of a kind, and that's good.
Trying.
Now, you have had lineup changes like a very old band has, and all the members are quite a bit younger in terms of like the era in the band. How hard it is to keep the momentum going on and the creativity and doing new albums when you have people coming and going?
I think, well, compared to other bands, we've been lucky not to have too many people going in and out. But I think, I don't know, I never asked myself that question. My hope is always, if there's a new member, that the member brings something to the band, or whatever that is. It doesn't have to be music, but it's always very welcome. Even though I make all the music, it's never like I have to. The musical insight is very important, and the ideas of others, and to have the same mindset of what is good music or not. But to keep it going, I mean, I think it's just I wouldn't have people wanting to be with me if they didn't believe that I actually managed to always progress in a way where they can learn something, they can evolve, and they want to be a part of just constructing the whole dark metal thing and making new albums. And so, yeah, I mean, keeping it together, I guess, just we just work well together. And I spend my time trying to make good music, and I guess I'm just successful at it. So I will just keep the train
going.
Yeah, that's it.
What kind of bands nowadays inspire you? I mean, I think it must be a little bit different than, say, early 90s, even if the classics are the same. But
yeah, I still listen to older albums of this, pretty much the same bands. So if I wanted to, I use other bands less now than before. But if I wanted, like, kind of get into making something. But it's still, for me, Morbid Angel or Deicide or Immortal and the older albums that I love that so much, and that can influence me a little bit still. But I use that. There was way more of that earlier, especially when I got into the more death metal elements and mixing that into Aeternus. I was very influenced by Morbid Angel and trying to not make too many riffs that sounded like them, and say with Deicide or Immortals for that matter. But those are the bands, I guess. Those three still matters a lot to me. Metallica, of course. Shame on me. Kiss, still love that old stuff.
Yeah, that is something, I guess, that separates our generation from the guys who are like in 30s or 20s. Like, they don't understand, like, why would you talk about Kiss? Why would you talk about Metallica? Why we made it through this place? And but that was our childhood. Yeah. Like, there were the names before all the 1990s stuff came, which is kind of like the newer waves, and it was already changing. How do you think the world of metal has changed as a listener, not so much as a musician, in your opinion?
Yeah, for me, that's a question I usually don't have so much to say, because I don't pay attention so much. And I think it's just like, there's always new bands that comes around that has a lot of interesting aspects to them. And there's a lot of bands that just don't get it right. Some bands don't get it right, and they get a lot of attention. That's just a matter of opinion. For me, the metal scene and the music scene it's like a evolution. It's just growing, And there's a lot of bullshit, and there's a lot of good stuff. And I'm more just focused on just trying to be where I am and make music and focus on my own band. I don't pay a lot of attention of like doing set and metal scene. It's like, did you hear blah blah? Did that happen? And like, okay. So I mean, I just and I'm not the biggest reader of metal news. I come across something here and there, sure, but I don't try to get a hold of a lot of news. But I think that there will always be a metal scene, and there will always be extreme music, which I think is really great because it's a very special thing, and it means a lot to people. And I hope that it will grow, become just bigger, and that we get to see a lot of good stuff and good music too.
Now, talking about reading about music, do you ever read reviews or news about your own band?
Well,
or one of those like I want to steer away?
No, that's a review is one man's opinion, and I think I usually I understand and I can agree with whatever it is, if it's positive or negative, and sometimes we don't agree, and then but I like to read it because I mean, why not? It's you know it when it's like just a ridiculous one where like, yeah, this is total shit, and it says nothing else. Then it's like, okay. But I think it's just I always when you release an album, you pay attention to what people have to say.
Yeah,
and I think that's because it's fun to read. And then sometimes it's weird, sometimes it's funny, sometimes I agree. It's cool.
Are you more of a studio or live band, in your opinion?
When we get the opportunity to do shows, we are actually very much like a live band. I mean, we were that a lot, like in the 90s, where we had Hammer Hard Records. They managed to put us on all these support acts tours. And of course, things went a little up and down when we left them. But I mean, when we did Heathen, we were supposed to do a lot, but then we lost this booking agency. And so, we did way, way, way less than what we planned or wanted to. Now we have new booking agency, which we hope will manage to boost this new release and everything, because we love it. We love playing live. It's really fun, and it's just two different things for me as a composer. Making music is just something almost private anyway, because it's just me doing most of it. But yeah, live is just the own way of just that. How do you say it? We channel and portray all that your music is all about, and that's quite an ultimate experience. I don't think anybody of us will ever be tired of that.
Yeah, I think it's still two different worlds, and I know that the question itself is kind of silly because you're not like supposed to choose with one another, but sometimes it's interesting to like create this window into someone's brain, because some bands are like songs are just mandatory evil, where with other cases it's sometimes we just play because it's kind of have to. Or not.
Yeah, I understand.
But what I wanted to ask is, but now we get back to the Greek Holland topic.
Yeah.
And before we agreed to do this interview, I'm like puttering the place, and this was decided because you have actually recorded stuff here. So it must have some kind of a special meaning to it. What Greek Holland means to you as an artist, as a musician, composer?
Yeah, we like coming here. Yes, we've been around for 30 years, more or less, this year, and we've done 6 albums here, and so we think it's really cool and very special to come here and play like this. I think actually it's very cool to just be the opening act. I think that's pretty cool. I mean, what's better is to have a dark metal just pounding off and just for the last day and everything. I think it's perfect. And yeah, like many of the Norwegian bands and the Bergen bands, we went here, and we were extremely satisfied with the work of Pitten. He taught us a lot. We were young, of course, in our 20s, and like, how the hell do you make a cool album? Like when we heard about him, so like anybody else almost, it's like, okay, we're gonna try that. And of course, being so satisfied with him, so we did 6 albums before we. Had the courage to try something else. At that time when we did that, I was very reluctant, because if something works,
why change the pattern?
Yeah. But that's why you
exactly. How to kind of come out.
Okay, I said to the others, and then luckily we did an album that we were very satisfied with, and also then Heathen. Okay, so we stayed more or less with the same studio, just a different producer, and but here, it's a special place for any band that has done several albums here. Greek Holland is It's just not because King Holland is like some kind of magical place where a lot of bands think that the Pitten has like a super button that he just presses and then you get this perfect sound, and it's King Holland. You know, I mean, whatever you bring, your guitar, your skills, your music, your equipment, that's what makes the music. He's not a sorcerer, but he's good.
Yeah.
But others can do what he did in the same studio, you know. Yeah, it's just it was extremely. We're very proud of what we did here, and it's a loads of memories, and it's a very special past, of course, that we cherish.
Now, adding to that, how does your lyrical work, as hand in hand with composing, has changed over the course that, well, you become more mature, more experienced, maybe world views change a little bit, and all that stuff? How has that changed, or for that matter, singing those older lyrics, like taking them into play and like, oh, this was when I was my 10th or so, versus being...
I had some of that feeling. I had some of that, like, you know, practicing some of the older shit, you know, like the past weeks. Well, I mean, we had Ricardo from Torque, the bassist in Torque. He was writing lyrics for us after Morgan left, where she and I did lyrics. Ricardo is extremely good with lyrics. He's very poetic. He's very good with phrasing. And so when he quit the band, I asked him, well, you still want to write lyrics for us because you're very good. And he thought that was great, and he thanked us for that. And he did that on every album after that. So even on this new album, he took it a little extra step because it's a very poetic album, where there's a lot of, not a poetic album, it's a very philosophical. The new album is called Philosopher, where philosophy in an extremely complex way has been put into 7 songs. Let's say 7 songs. And I forgot. And very challenging to put music on, because where you have like the typical song with the, you know, verse, chorus, this rhyme, where he wrote lyrics where the lyrics were just kind of like a big philosophy or something.
Yeah.
So to memorize that is hell. It's like reading a book and then you just gotta remember it. And then, so I had gone through that so many times, but it was fun to put music on it because it was difficult to put music on it. And that I like that. But to practice them, that was a pain. So he still does that for us. And of course, yes, the older lyrics from the 90s, you would do kind of like a Manowar song, you know, you write about battles and swords, blood and shit. And okay, so that's how it was, you know. And then of course the evolution in that, for our sake, is just actually through him, where his expertise in writing good lyrics has benefited us.
Yeah.
And we think that's a cool thing. Maybe now in the next album we're going to try something new where we actually don't use him, because we don't. I mean, we talked about it. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. But you know, but then of course you take away that kind of expertise that he has. I know I can't write like he does. It doesn't mean I can't. So we'll see how that goes. But the latest albums have been lyrically very complex, because that's how he writes, which I really had. Of course, we have enjoyed.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens in the future now.
Now, about songwriting in the future, like you mentioned that going a little bit back on the early album style, is it something that you have kind of manually force yourself, or does it come naturally, like, okay, now I mean, this kind of a mood, like the next album we already have these and that kind of riffs, or how does it happen?
I think initially it was just an idea that can't run too fast. Well, initially it was just an idea of trying to. We knew that we had a lot of death metal elements going on, and a lot of like, you know, the dark metal category was like getting a little small, and I thought, okay, you know, like I knew always what people really liked from more or less like from the older stuff. So it was an idea that we tried. We started doing that on the 7th album. It was more clear and more present on the 8th album, The Heathen. And this time I think we just take it even a little more, but then also you got to mix it with the original new way of thinking in music. Because I don't want to make a bunch of stuff that just reminds people of the first album.
Yeah, like kind of a nostalgia trip.
Yeah, like, I would never do that because that's just like, that's me going backwards. Yeah.
That's retro.
Yeah. And I want to evolve as a composer, and I want to challenge my thinkers and you know, like, what can I do? Challenge my brain, you know, make weird chords, make something technical sound good. And the other way around, you want to make something super easy sound good, which is really cool when you know, so I mixed that into it all. But initially it was an idea, basically. Just try to keep some of that old shit and put that into the songs without making it like a copy of something you already did. And I think we'll keep that maybe also in the future. I think also what's something we have deliberately doing now is we take away a lot of the fast shit, like blast beats and stuff, because we feel very comfortable with the more mid-paced melodic stuff and the more heavy, the pounding stuff, you know. So there's not a lot of fast shit on the new album. And that's a path I feel very comfortable on. So I think the future will hold very little the fast shit with the more mid-paced, heavy stuff, actually. Which I think I will take the new songs, I think, in the future further even there to that deep, definitely.
Now, assuming there will be a audience people who are like, okay, I have never heard a single song of the band, and now I'm definitely like very, very enthusiastic to do that. I want to help them out, excluding the new album, because artists always say, start with our newest album. If we exclude that one, what would be the starting point for a new Aeternus fan to start listening to your album? Which album or favorite song? It's up to you. Kind of a starting point, like start with this, and in order to understand you better.
Yeah, that's a tough question.
I know, it's a tricky one.
Easily you could say, all right, start with the first one because that is the first one. I would recommend, actually, if you want to try out, like, see what we're about, you start almost in the middle just for fun, you know, like, because we had some special changes on the third album, Shadows of Old. We tuned up the guitars and we started toning down the very long songs and stuff like this. And so we did some changes in the music there, which was a very interesting change because people could hear it and they kind of, saw the changes. They heard the changes, and then the feedback was very positive to us. So that would be an interesting album to start off with.
Yeah, then you're going to go pretty much both directions all around here.
And then check out the older stuff that led to that album, where you then can understand maybe like why we would do the changes. But you wouldn't understand it by just listening, but like, and then of course like how we slid into the death metal kind of Aeternus death metal era, where somebody calls it your death metal era, which is fine. And then reversing it, just sliding a little back to the older era,
Yeah, that's a good way.
Yeah. So third album, Shadows of Old, they're good start points.
All right. Before wrapping up, what can we expect from Aeternus live?
Hopefully, very solid performance, meaning that we practice enough. We try to, and good sound, good visually, and an experience of just a demonstration of dark music and raw power.
That's a good description. All right. Now, the last question. Words of wisdom to your former self and those next generation musicians who are now going to be inspired by you and your wisdom. What kind of a philosophical take or guides or tips you could say for the people out there? Young artists, now you're there listening to these words.
Believe in yourself. Don't stop believing in yourself. Keep supporting metal. And be true and loyal to yourself and what you want to achieve. And remember this difference about what you want and what you need. Chew on that.
Those are very good words and tips for everybody out there, metal or not, dark metal, death metal, black metal, whatever kind of a metal. So check out the stuff. They do some good stuff, original stuff, and they original member, Bergen stuff from Lyrical and all that stuff. Now, off you go, check out the music and get to see them live when you can. This is Rauta, this is Beyond the Gates, this is Aras of Aeternus. Now, well, thank you for your time. Good night.